Did Jesus really claim to be God? A friend threw that question out at me, and depending on your background or the kind of people that you surround yourself with, you might wrestle with that question too. There's a lot of religions in the world. I think of Buddhists or I think of Muslims who talk about Jesus and believe that he existed, but they don't believe that he was God. They just believe that he was a great example or an enlightened prophet. So it's a good question. If you have a mixed family or friend circle, or if you yourself have been curious about it, did Jesus himself really claim to be God? I think of two billboards that I saw in the last 10 years or so. One was in Houston, Texas, and it was a big billboard that says, "Muslims heart Jesus." Like Muslims in the Quran, like we're not anti-Jesus, they would say we're pro-Jesus. But then I think about another billboard. I actually saw it in Israel in the town of Nazareth. It was a billboard that said this, quote, "Whoever seeks a religion other than Islam, in the hereafter, he will be one of the losers." And that billboard was placed right next to the giant church that celebrates where the Annunciation of Jesus's conception and birth happened. So if you Christians think that this was like Emmanuel, God with us, no. You will be a loser for all eternity if you believe such things. All right, so there's a real question that divides religions. What did Jesus himself say? Did he claim to be just a prophet, just a man? Did he claim to be something more like God? Did later Christians, centuries later, twist the story and make him more than he was? These are essential questions for us to answer. If you push me to a one-word answer, I would say yes. Yes, in the Bible, Jesus, in many, many ways, did claim to be more than a man. Think of those moments when people fell down and worshiped him. Imagine this, if you came to my church, and as I was preaching, like people fell down and started to worship me, and I just soaked it in and smiled, what would you think about that? It doesn't matter how good of a man I might be or how great the sermon of that day was. We would never let human beings accept worship because that belongs to God. And yet Jesus accepted people's worship and praise. More than that, Jesus knew things that only God could know. He could read the Pharisees' thoughts and motives. He could do things that only God could do, calm the storms. He took titles that God himself had in the Old Testament, like being the good shepherd of the people of Israel. He called himself the Son of Man, which might not seem like he's claiming to be God, but read Daniel chapter 7, where the Son of Man was in heaven being worshipped by all nations. There are so many clues, if you know how to look for them, that Jesus claimed to be more than a good man or a wise teacher. He did claim to be God. But today I want to leave you with my favorite. In John chapter 8, there's a section where Jesus is debating exactly his identity, and the Pharisees are coming at him. Who do you think that you are? What gives you the right? And look what happens at the very end of John chapter 8. Jesus said, "Your father Abraham," if you remember, Abraham lived like 2,000 years before Jesus. "Your father Abraham rejoiced at the thought of seeing my day. He saw it and was glad." "You are not yet 50 years old," the Pharisees said to Jesus, "and you have seen Abraham." Or to get the logic, Jesus said, "Oh yeah, old Abraham, like he was connected to me. He saw my day and he was happy about it." And they say, what do you mean? You're not 2,000 years old. How can you and Abraham have a connection? You're like 30-something, aren't you, Jesus? Listen to his response. "Very truly, I tell you," Jesus answered, "before Abraham was born, I am." Verse 59, at this, the Pharisees picked up stones to stone him, but Jesus hid himself, slipping away from the temple grounds. I am. Did you know that the sacred name for God in the Old Testament was I am, Yahweh or Jehovah in Hebrew? Maybe you've heard Christians talk about the great I am is a nickname for God. Jesus was claiming he was the eternal God who existed before Abraham. He was the great I am. And the Pharisees knew exactly what he was saying. They didn't think he was claiming to be just a good guy. They picked up stones because that was blasphemous in their sight. Jesus himself claiming to be God. Did Jesus claim to be God? The answer is yes. And if I was you, I would thank God that he did. If just another man died on the cross, you would still be in your sins. If just a good example shed his blood 2,000 years ago, you would still have to be judged by a perfect God for your impatience, for your pride, for your laziness, and for your selfishness. But if Jesus was more than that, if his blood was holy and precious, if it was divine, then it came with superpower to scrub away every sin, save you, and keep you safe for all eternity. Did Jesus claim to be God? Yes. And I'm so glad that he did. Because Jesus is God, people like us get to be with God one day. So friends, believe big thoughts about Jesus. He was truly man and truly God in one person. And because he was, you and I can be saved.
Hey, thanks for listening to Taboo Questions with me, Pastor Mike Novotny. You can find even more questions on timeofgrace.org/taboo questions and in my book entitled Taboo, Topics Christians Should Be Talking About But Don't. Just look for the link in the episode notes.